Uh, okay, well, I guess to start us off, could you introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, my name's Enrique Miguel Baniqued, and I'm the producer of Village Keeper.
All right, nice to meet you, Enrique. Is there any other credits that you have, like from stuff that you might have done in college, like little short films or whatever?
In terms of producing a film, Village Keeper is my first producing credit. I haven't had a chance to produce a short prior to this, but I do produce social content for the city of Toronto, and I have my own business that I service produce client work for.
Okay, that's great. And just for credit, how could anybody want to come in contact with you if they have like any ideas?
Yeah, in terms of that, the best way to reach me is my Instagram at Enrique Miguel underscore or LinkedIn, which is just my name.
Okay, so I guess starting off, how did you get to where you are? Like, what was the career path you kind of took in terms of like, did you get here? Like, did you start off in like film school and maybe did something else before then, or did you go and like, did you always want to be a producer?
Yeah, no. So to give you a background of a bit of myself, I grew up in the Philippines and I moved to Canada in 2019. I did a business degree in the Philippines, and after that business degree, I wasn't sure what type of specific business I wanted to get into. Um, but a lot of people told me it's like you follow your passion, and that's how it works. And I knew I was passionate about traveling, so I found a course at Centennial College called Lifestyle Media, which is like digital media content creation. Because I saw on Instagram that people get paid to travel to take pictures and go get flown out to do that stuff. So I wanted to figure out how to do that, and that course at Centennial felt like that was it. So I did that, and 4 months after getting here, the pandemic happened. So that whole travel and tourism thing shut down with the rest of the world. And then how I got into film, which is also because of COVID, was because I saw news that the film industry was the first industry to start up again during the pandemic here. And at the time, I didn't even know film was a thing in Canada. I never knew what TIFF was and how big it is and all the shows that film here. So I was just being an immigrant looking for work, and that was pretty much it. So I found my way on set just by actually DMing producers on Instagram, telling them I want to get on set. And I tell this to people all the time: is the only two things I actually knew about Toronto prior to moving here were the Raptors, because basketball is pretty huge in the Philippines, and also Drake, because he's pretty big everywhere.
Right.
And my first film credit is on a Drake music video, just because those were the people I was DMing, and they brought me on set. And then quick fast forward to getting to produce Village Keeper. Karen Chapman, who was the director of the film, was actually one of the other first directors I got to meet working on set. I worked as a production assistant for her short Quiet Mind Silent Streets, which also played a TIFF in 2022. Um, and then from that set, from working with her on that, we found that we were neighbors, so I got to naturally keep in touch with her. And fast forward to 2023, she asked me if I wanted to produce Village Keeper. That's the quick story of it. There's a lot of minute details in that, but that's the quick story of it.
Right. Okay. So obviously you had a very different like kind of way you got into this industry more than any other like film student. You just saw it as like an opportunity and you just went for it.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing for me. But I actually just to backtrack. I actually did a film course at Centennial College as well after my first program. But
Just
that was
so you knew kind of what you were doing, like you understand a bit of like film, I guess.
I like just because that course was 6 months long, and also during the pandemic, so we
I
never
see.
really
Okay.
got to make anything. We barely got to make anything, and got to see each other just because it was all on Zoom. But I still keep in touch with people from my school, and I actually hired them for Village Keeper as well in some capacities. So there's that. But like working on, I was working on set at the same time I was doing that program, and I felt like I was learn what I was taking in during class was making more sense because I was working on set.
I see. So basically, you what you had was kind of like what you would learn in set. You would see if it was like true or not, and then be like, oh, okay, so this is how it works. Like for instance, like maybe you might have been a bit confused on something, and then when you see it in person, it's like, oh, it's that simple.
Yeah, I think the thing that I actually noticed on one of the first sets I ever worked on was like, oh, so that's what a first AD does.
Right.
You think like a first assistant director, you're assisting the director in some type of way on the direction side, but it's actually not. It's actually more than that. So I got to see that on set and apply that on real time as I was in school. So that was cool to see.
All right, that is cool. So did you I guess in your early stages were you necessarily doing jobs or was it mainly like internships and like how did you get into them? Or
Yeah, I was doing jobs. The first set I ever worked on was I volunteered because that's what I DM'd the producer about. It's like, oh, if you ever need extra hands, I'm happy to volunteer. I'm just curious of how it works and I want to get on set. I volunteered. I've only volunteered once. Like after that first volunteer set, the producers brought me on and everybody just kept paying me. And I think that's a testament to the work you put in, because I noticed that. Because I would say that I wanted to get out of being a PA as quick as possible. So what I did was actually after the first couple sets that I worked on, I then emailed the key grips or assistant cameras, telling them, "Oh, I'm interested in this department. If you need a volunteer, I'll help you." And some of them would say yes, and at the end of the shoot, they would say, "Oh, actually, I'm paying you just because I liked how you work." And that's how kind of how some people filter things out, and they figure out if you're your game or not. Because I mean, working on set on film school is very different from working on like big commercial sets, and there's way more stakes and like safety and all that.
yeah, there's probably more like security and like permits you got to sign and like you can film here but you can't like film over on that side because maybe the person didn't give you consent or whatever.
Yeah, it's a lot more serious than film school sets. So
Then something like guerrilla style filmmaking where you just like fuck it, put a camera somewhere and just film somewhere else.
yeah, no, there's not like that. But yeah, it was mostly I was working on set. So to give you an actual timeline, the first set I got to work on, which is What's Next, which is Drake's music video, was March of 2021, and I would PA up until May, because by the time in June I actually landed a job at the Canadian Film Center as a production coordinator. So between March to May, I was doing PA jobs, I was doing electric jobs, I was doing grip jobs, assistant camera jobs. So I would do all of that, and then fast forward to June, I landed my production coordinator job at the film center, and I was there for 6 months. And then after that, I got laid off because the lockdown happened again. And then a month after that, I got brought on as a production manager still at the film center because it opened up again. And then I did that role for a year.
Right. Is joining a union necessary for this type of career path for you? Because it sounds like what you did was more like just you talked to people and then you got in. I guess are you even part of a union? I guess maybe you are now since you produced your first feature film.
Yep. No, I'm not part of this. I mean, the CMPA is not technically a
Right.
union. I'm not part of that yet, just because I don't see the benefits right now. Because I'm not in a scale where I need to I need that yet. But no, I was just mostly working commercial jobs, non-union jobs. I think working on a union helps. I think because like just thinking about how this would be helpful for a film student, because they would tell you when you're in film school, they would tell, oh, check out the unions and all that. But it's not actually that easy to get those jobs as frequently as you would think. You would still need to build up relationships and know the right people to get consistent jobs. And that's not the only option. So there's also the commercial world.
Mhm.
So there's more than just the union. And I think for me, just because if you go through a union, there's always a hierarchy of things. And I know a lot of people who have been PAing for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and they still haven't moved up. And I think for me, I didn't want to stay in that pace, and so I tried to keep leveling up as soon as I can, because whenever I felt like I've learned enough, I find a way to level up.
Right. I guess you just didn't want any restrictions, and you're willing to take the risks for what something can offer you, like protection and whatever. If like someone tries to like mess with you with payment or whatever, right? You just decided to just go with it, I guess.
Not in a way, not go with it, but also be more strategic of my approach of like
I
getting
see.
jobs, how I could learn from people. I try to find people I want to work with and work I admire, and I think that's kind of how I got to this. Fortunately, got to this spot in the 2 years that I've or 3 years I've been in film.
Okay. Uh, where is the best place you can look for work in the industry, whether you're trying to be a producer or like a director or writer, I guess.
For the key creative roles, I think it's at the end of the day, like to get those jobs, you need to have worked as those jobs, and I guess question there is how do you make your own work? So it's like really you have to put yourself out there, build
Right.
relationships, and actually make your own stuff. Because no one's gonna hire you as a director if you haven't directed anything. Um, and it's a long grind. Like I work like Karen, the director I work with, like she's been in the industry for like 30 years now, or 20 plus years now, and she's been doing it for a while, and she only got the chance to make her first feature this year, or finish it this year. Um, but yeah, it's like if you want to be those key creative roles, you have to make your own stuff, and you just don't give up. I think that was the biggest part I've seen is like people who have been doing it for this long. It's like they've just been keeping on doing it. And like our cinematographer for Village Keeper, his name's Jordan Forum. He's quite an established DP as well. And like we were surprised when he said yes that he wanted to do our little film because it's like he works on big shows and it's a little budget, but he said that it's like really just relationships and investing in the right people.
Right. I guess some people kind of get the false pretenses that oh you can become a filmmaker quickly, mainly because like filmmakers like Orson Welles, Spielberg, and PTA kind of got into the industry really young, like in their mid 20s, and got lucky. But then people also forget like people like Ridley Scott only did their first feature when he turned like 40, so it could take
Yeah,
definitely a while before you can
ex-
get your first feature.
yeah. Like there's so many ways to do it, and there's no one way, and like there's so many people also doing this thing that you will never hear about or that love doing it and just will keep doing it. So it's like everybody has their own path, and you just gotta try it. I think.
Right. Yeah. What is the best tool of trade should you have moving forward in the industry? As in, like, should you like does owning your own camera equipment get you ahead, or like, I guess in a way, like if you're working in a certain like project, they'll already have a camera for you there, and you got to work with it. Or, if you have like a certain camera they really want, would that necessarily help you like get that position? I guess.
It varies depending on what stage you're at and also what type of work you're doing. I think owning a camera, if we're talking about us as a cinematographer, I think owning a camera is helpful in the beginning stages when you're trying to make your own reel, because
Right.
it's much more in the long run. It'll be cheaper rather than having to rent each time out if you don't have the connections to rent out gear for free. Um, but in the long run, once your projects get bigger, like companies will just have the budget to rent out gear. But it's great if you're starting out trying to build your own stuff. Like have a camera if you're gonna make your own stuff.
Right. What's the best advice you can offer for for someone, especially in my position, trying to find success and also maybe trying to find like an internship or placement in this world?
I think my first question back to you is like, what do you want to do,
Well,
or what are you trying to figure out that you want to do if you don't know it yet? Because that was kind of me when I was in
yeah,
school. I was telling people, oh, I either want to be a cinematographer or a producer.
right. Well, I'm kind of want to make my like own stuff. I guess I'm kind of ambitious in that way, where I want to be kind of like an auteur filmmaker and make my own types of things. So I've been writing a lot mainly, and then doing directing as like a side thing, just trying to figure stuff out, and also like produce my own stuff.
Wait, well, I think in terms of directing, again, it's just making your own stuff because it takes years to know things, and by doing the thing, and that's how you learn what you like, what you don't like, what works, what doesn't, and yeah, it's just make your stuff, make your own stuff. I think that's the biggest advice. It's like I know it's sometimes it's very hard, especially if you don't have a budget and it's restrictive, but most people who I've met, like they just find a way to just make it and make use of what they have.
Okay. So, if you could have done anything differently for like the career path you were taking, what would have you done?
I mean, honestly, I feel so blessed with the position I'm at with my first film and how it's going and all the festivals we played. It premiered at TIFF. I just came back from LA last week. We just had our U.S. premiere at Santa Barbara. We're gonna have our theatrical release in Canada in May, and we'll have a digital release in the U.S. at the end of the year. I'm learning a lot, and fortunately for me, I think there's nothing I would change at the moment. Just because I feel like at every stage, I think just because of my mindset of approaching things, we try to make the most of where we're at. Um, but yeah, yeah, like just thinking about when we were filming, it's like we shot the film in 12 days, which is not a lot. but I think we made the most out of the budget that we had, and I think yeah, there's nothing I would have changed to this point as of the moment,
Uh,
thankfully.
okay. Is there any other advice you would like to offer that we hasn't been said yet?
Um, who is the advice for, or
This is
like
just like a general question I gotta ask. This is one of the questions that you kind of have to ask. But like just general, like, is there anything like you feel like maybe that's very important that students should know that like maybe isn't something that like is often talked about or whatever?
I think for me, the advice I took a lot. This was even before I got to Canada. Is like how important your network is, and I was a person growing up that wasn't. I was a shy kid, and I have a hard time meeting people or making up conversations and all that. But I had to change once I got here, and that's been helpful in terms of building relationships. And at the end of the day, you want to work with people you like. That won't be always be the case, but it's like more often than not, that's who people would like to work with. So you have to be personable in a way, and I think being kind to everybody, no matter what stage you are, even when you're a PA, when you're a producer, just being respectful to everybody and treating people the same way, because you never know where people will be at. Because I've been treated shit when I was a producer or when I was a PA, and it's like, yeah, it's not good. Like it's free to be nice, but also another thing I would say is just don't let your age stop you. Like I'm always in a room where it's like everybody's twice my age. I'm also usually the only Filipino in the room. I think don't let your age or where your background stop you from doing what you want to do.
Okay. What skill that you've learned has been the most beneficial to you, especially in like the field that you're in right now?
I think being tenacious. I think being quick, being tenacious, being able to adapt really quickly. I think the biggest thing that was a headache when we were in production, which surprisingly wasn't the logistical part of production, it was more so the people part of it. So being able to understand and talk to people and communicate, I think that's a big for producers. It's important, but also directors as well. So
Right. Okay, so I guess you kind of already answered this, but what would be the biggest challenge you have faced in your career? And I guess you was overcoming your shyness.
I think I wouldn't say that was the biggest thing because I felt like coming into it, I knew that's what I had to change, so that wasn't the hard thing. I think the biggest thing is just it's people you don't like. It's hard to you can't control that.
Right.
I think finding a way to navigate through that's been the hardest part. And because you have to work, it's a small industry here at least in Canada, so you see people and you will interact with them even if they change roles somewhere else. So it's navigating through people you don't like is gonna be the hard part, and I'm still figuring that part out. So
Yeah, especially I can imagine if like let's say it's like a big project then it takes like 3 months and it's like I gotta deal with be with this guy for like the next 3 months or
yeah, yeah. I mean, if you don't have the capacity to fire someone, that's the hard part.
yeah. Hold up a second. What are some emerging trends on filmmaking genres or story techniques that really kind of interest you or like you kind of want to tackle?
Mm. I feel like I'll get hate from people when I say this, but I embrace. I feel like as someone who's Gen Z, I embrace technology. I'm not fearful of where AI can bring the industry to. I feel like it'll just be another tool that people can use. So interested in exploring that and gaining more knowledge on that.
Right. I think some people, when it comes to AI, are just feared that they'll just start replacing actors or whatever, and not. And I don't think that's gonna necessarily happen. Like, for instance, a film that was just nominated for the Oscars, The Brutalist, was claimed to use like some AI to help tweak the voices of their actors a bit, just because it's a very I forget what accent it was, but it was a very hard accent to really nail, and they just used some AI to help tweak it. And I don't necessarily think that's necessarily too bad, but again, because everyone's very like scared of AI replacing everything. People were just like very already kind of negative about it.
Yeah, I don't think AI will replace things necessarily. I think AI could provide more jobs because it's a tool, and people like you need someone to use the tool for the tool to work.
Right.
So it'll find other jobs for people too, which has technology has done. It's like I think I had this conversation once, or I was at a talk once. I was talking about AI, and they mentioned some past articles where people were afraid of cell phones before. So it's like it's at the end of the day it's technology, and I don't think hopefully it won't replace people like that. So
Right. I think people are just concerned that like because especially with bigger studios thinking like oh AI will help budget like lower the prices on things.
which in a way in my head maybe that'll then provide more opportunities. So it's like if budgets go lower, then wouldn't maybe they have more budget to make more projects?
Right. But again, then again, it's like people that not necessarily know much about the industry. Just don't. They're just fans of films and just want everything to kind of stay the same in terms of like an actor, a writer, and director to make the stuff.
For the short time that I've been in the industry, I've learned to know that the industry's gone through so much, and it's like, and it's not just this all the streaming stuff and all that stuff. Like it's gone through stuff throughout the past year, the 20, 30 years ago too, and it's still surviving. So I think it'll figure itself out.
Yeah, a lot of people don't necessarily know this, but like the film industry did almost die like in the 60s once television was introduced because
Exactly.
people were finding just like why am I going to go out when I can just watch television instead.
Exactly. So I think it's just knowing that's how business works, and like it'll find a way to still be there. So
Right. Um besides from like I guess the films that and the people that you've worked with, who are like some filmmakers or just in general films that you admire and why?
um, I think for me, someone I really admire right now who've had the fortunate opportunity to be mentored by through a program I did at TIFF was his name is Dan Beckerman. I honestly did not know any Canadian filmmakers prior to being in the industry, but Dan Beckerman has since gone on to produce The Witch by Robert Eggers, Ready or Not. Also, his most recent film, The Apprentice, which is a biopic about Donald Trump. Just seeing his work and how he's been doing that, and knowing his path, and knowing how he's been able to sustain himself as a producer, I think it's very admirable. Just because of how different it is to be how different it is to be an independent producer here in Canada versus the U.S.
Right. Okay. Are there like any like maybe like I guess talking about like super like mega stars like big filmmakers you would like to work with in the future if you ever got the chance to?
Um, I mean, I grew up watching a lot of Steven Spielberg stuff, so I would like to work with him.
Right.
But I don't know how much time. I gotta be quicker if I want to work
Yeah,
with
I
him.
was gonna say hey, he's approaching. He's in his late
Yeah,
70s. Better hurry up.
yeah. But in terms of actors, what the first actor I actually have met and have had a conversation with. His name is Coleman Domingo.
Oh.
Sing Sing, and he's been nominated for an Oscar for Sing Sing and Rustin, for back to back years. Um, I would like to work with him just because of how nice he is as a person. Like I actually met him because he approached me. He introduced himself. This was a TIFF last year, and like for me, it's like outside of him being obviously a great artist, I think it's like again going back to you want to work with nice people and people you like. And Coleman gives that energy, and I know people who have worked with him, and people always say the same things. And yeah, and I even as myself, it's like I'm nowhere near like the acclaim that Coleman has, and like I feel like I gotta be more like Coleman when I try to meet people and be in these rooms and just be nicer.
Right. What are your thoughts on like the current state of like films and stuff like kind of like diversity and representation? We already talked about AI, so we don't have to necessarily go into that. But in terms of like, because there's been a lot of push, especially for in award season, for like having films that are more diverse and representative of minority groups.
Yeah. Well, I think as a diverse person, I think that's very beneficial for me
Right.
because like, but surprisingly, I didn't know. Like, because I know I came into the industry in 2021. I thought that this has just been the industry in Canada, but apparently it isn't. It's only in 2020 because of the Black Tourists that this movement has been happening.
Right.
It's great that this is finally happening, and I think there's now because I know there's always this topic of Hollywood running out of ideas, and I think this is an opportunity where they can get more ideas. It's just different backgrounds, different perspectives. So hopefully it becomes more receptive in that sense, and I want to be in that space. So
Right. I think the problem that some people necessarily have, not saying that I necessarily agree with it, is that like they're kind of not doing anything with your like stories. It's just more so, oh, we're gonna get a black guy and just put him in this film and that's it. and just kind of like recast people. And
Yeah,
some people will obviously be have like kind of bigoted thoughts but towards it, but then some people will just kind of be like, this doesn't change anything. You're just making the same film.
yeah. Yeah, I think there's still a fear of how well it will do, but once people start seeing the risk and start seeing the payoff of it, I think people will be more receptive.
Right.
That's the word.
I think it's just that because especially like Hollywood's kind of playing it safe right now, especially considering now people are only now recently starting to go back into theaters, and they still want to keep like a steady growth because of COVID and the fear of like streaming services, I guess.
Like it's a perfect year to start getting into in the space.
Yeah.
All just like up and down with
Right.
all this. So,
And then I guess just a quick fun question. What was your favorite film that I guess you've seen this last year? Well, not this year.
last year was between Dune 2 and Anora.
Oh, okay, that's good. And
What about
yeah. And then I guess the question would be like, if not necessarily saying me, but what if like someone like pitched to you an idea, like let's say for me, I have a screenplay, and I was like, hey, I come to you and I'm like, hey, I have this story, can you help me? Can you be my producer? And where could we go from there? I guess.
I think at the end of the day, it's like the material, and in terms of are we in line of what we want to do. And I'm like right now at this early stage of mine, like right now this is the way I think, but it could change like as things could. But like I want to build up a relationship with someone I believe in, and also has the same goals as me. So it's more than just the script; it's also what this person wants to do in the long run.
Okay. And like, what would those goals kind of be?
Yeah, for me, I mean, for me, growing up was like I actually don't call myself a cinephile. Like the movies that made it to the Philippines in theaters back then were like the big blockbusters movies, and I still enjoy watching those types of movies, and I do want to make those types of movies. So I do want to make it in Hollywood. So that's the goal for me. And I feel like right now there's no plan B. It's like it's that or I'll be in a different industry.
Right. Okay. I see. All right. Well, that's all the questions that I have. Thanks for taking the time for this quick little interview. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Tell me more about yourself, man.
Uh,
About
okay. Well, like I said, for I guess I'll talk about me for a bit now. I've been, right now I've just been focusing on like writing my own like screenplays and just doing that because I haven't really gotten a chance to direct anything yet. Just more people like wanting to pitch ideas or whatever. And strangely enough, I've been able to kind of come up with like stories that are a lot more longer to the point where it's just like I have a kind of I don't know. I guess I have a problem of being like kind of overly ambitious on what I want to tell, and I have a hard time kind of writing short stories. So I have been like practicing on writing like features, and I think I've done pretty well at that.
mhm. So have you had a chance to make anything yet? You said no.
Some very small like directing exercises that are in school. I haven't really gotten a chance yet to like get my own crew and make it on my own. But I
Remind,
do plan on doing it sometime soon. Just
remind what school are you in and
Sheridan College.
how's that going?
It's going all right now. We just had a snow busy. We just had school closed for a couple days because of the snowstorm, so that was fun.
Yeah, no, like I came back from Palm Trees and like
Yeah. Actually, I forgot to mention I did produce. I can't believe I forgot. I did produce one project for the short film, a documentary. I don't know if it's been released yet, but I think he's gotten it in a couple of film festivals that just haven't played yet. Uh,
have you been going to the festivals?
no, I haven't. I haven't because I don't think he's they've gotten accepted yet. But
Yeah, I think that's when my another
yeah.
one of my advice is like try to go to these, just meet people.
Right. A smaller project that I worked on just to help like clean up the kind of script that he has was my buddy Isaac and his short film Invisible School. I heard that that got accepted somewhere.
Yeah, I think trying being in those festivals because I think again I'm new to this and I learned so much from any festival I go to, and you also meet a lot of people, and like you never know who you can meet, right?
Right.
But yeah, what do you want to do? Or what kind of stuff do you want to make?
I just want to kind of make my own films. I would say am a cinephile to a certain extent. I just kind of like, because I think by the time I was a preteen, I discovered people like Tarantino and like Kubrick and whatnot, that I was like, oh, and they kind of made their own film, so I kind of want to do that. So I'm very kind of artistic in that way, but I also want to do break out and make like feature films because like a lot of my favorite filmmakers, did end up breaking out in Hollywood. But I don't necessarily want to make like, the biggest films. I want to be like a very much well-known filmmaker that makes kind of his own things.
Like critically acclaimed.
Yeah.
No, that's a sweet spot, I think. But yeah, I think the best director, though, and the people I enjoy talking to the most are actually cinephiles because they know it's like a well of knowledge in terms of film.
Yeah.
But also, it's like knowing films is also different from making films. So
Yeah, it is. It could take, there's definitely because somebody could be like really into films, but might enjoy more so the critiquing and analyzing aspect of it than the making of. Because like, yeah, I trust me now that I've done both, it's very different both sides.
that is very different. There's so much compromise.
Mhm.
There's so much compromise. But
But yeah, thanks for asking me the questions now, I guess.
absolutely, man. Yeah, all the best with your stuff. I don't know if you would want to see Village Keeper. We're screening it next week.
Uh, sure. Where?
At the Paradise Theater.
Okay.
Maybe you can send it to your classmates or
All
whatever.
right. Yeah,
We're
just
going to Q&A afterwards, and there's a networking thing happening afterwards. So.
okay. Yeah, just send me like a message through email or LinkedIn and I'll look at it.
Yeah, we can just talk on LinkedIn.
Okay.
But thanks, dude.
All right, thanks. Have a good day.
All the best, bro.
You too. Bye.